everyone, welcome to another amazing day at fmtraining.tv where we discuss the wonderful and fantastic FileMaker platform. My name is Margaret. I am here with Mr. Miles Debsky, one of our wonderful senior engineers and our great assistants for these past 9 days. And of course, Kevin Miller, who is the wonderful CEO of LiveCode, who has come here to talk to us. Real quick, a reminder that we stream on 3 different platforms. We stream on YouTube, we stream on Discord, and we stream on Twitch. Hello, please ask us questions. We really love encouraging the community and discussing with you guys and having you guys shoot us questions and talk to us. So please ask us questions. We love hearing about it. We love answering. We love helping you guys out. That's the entire point of the live streams. Real quick, we're going to cover our next week. Okay, so today we are doing customer testimonials and covering future plans for LiveCode, so that'll be very exciting. Tomorrow is going to be our final open Q&A. If you have unanswered questions or other questions, or you missed a couple days, you want to go back and recap something, let us know. We are here to answer them. Monday and Tuesday it's called Tips and Tricks, but Nick has just gotten back to me and he's actually going to be covering really in-depth UI changes. So he's kind of done like overall big magic in the sky previously before, but now he's going to be covering like really, really in-depth pieces like how to manipulate the UI to neomorphism or design changes and everything, all that jazz. So that'll be very interesting. Wednesday is going to be a pause and error recap, which should be fun, and then Friday will be an open Q&A. We do have those every once in a while, so if you've got any random FileMaker question from the what are the 4 modes of FileMaker to I need help with this other grand problem with DAPI or whatever, that's going to be the day to ask those questions. Richard will be there to answer them, and maybe someone else will see. Okay, real quick, if you would like to support us, we do these live streams for free, but it does cost money. So we do them for free, but it is not free for us. So feel free if you'd like to support us, or you would like to learn more about FileMaker in like a much more intense environment. Not even necessarily intense, but just like, more narrow and like 5 to 20 minute chunks instead of long hour-long conversations. We have our Learning FileMaker annual subscription. This is 100+ hours of video content presented on by Richard, who is a fantastic trainer. He's very dynamic, he's very active, he's very entertaining. You won't get bored. And we pretty much cover every single conceivable topic you could want in order to become at least an intermediate to advanced developer. So from FileMaker Pro to Go to WebDirect, all that jazz, we talk about it. So basically, we've kind of pretty much talked about how to use LiveCode for these past like 9 days in a very thorough sort of way. Today is going to be fun. Today we're going to do customer testimonials, so it'll be 2 pre-recorded videos that me and Miles conducted as interviews. And then Kevin will pop in at the end to basically discuss the future of LiveCode and show off some new product stuff, which will be very exciting. Like what he has in store for us is very cool, very exciting. I'm excited to see it. So, but first, unless you've got anything either of you two want to add, I'm kind of content to grab the first interview and go with that. Okay.
Seems good to me. Yep.
In that case, we're going to do one with Ian from in Australia. Actually, they're both from Australia, which is actually kind of funny. Okay, we're going to do this one.
My current project, I'm now in hospital chaplaincy and have volunteered for disaster relief chaplaincy as well. So you may know that I'm in Australia. I'm in the east coast of Australia. We've had in 2019, 2020, some very significant bushfires, and I was deployed as a chaplain to evacuation centres. The system for deploying chaplains and keeping in touch and so on was not good. So just last year I volunteered to do some work on their system. One of the issues that they have is that when a situation looks like it's coming around, like a weather event or something like that, they need to actually ask a whole lot of chaplains, what's your availability to respond? So they've done this by sending out a group SMS and having people respond, but they've had to respond by telephone and people have had to note things down and so on. So the desire was to have a way on their phones that they could respond to the questions. So that's where I came in. I originally wrote this to actually work because my experience with it was WebDirect. I sent out an SMS with a link to going into a WebDirect session where people could put it in their data and so on. However, that obviously didn't work when I flooded it with more than my 10 concurrent users. And that was not useful at all. So I was thinking, I'll have to go to learn about this API, data API, to do something with a web page and those sorts of things. I had heard something about someone doing something with FileMaker on Android. So I looked it up and found LCFM, and I'd already written an app to run on WebDirect. And so my path into LCFM was actually implementing this app on LCFM. I didn't start the design process right from the beginning, thinking I'm moving down this way, but it was a FileMaker solution, which I then transferred onto LCFM. So that's where I'm at, and in terms of how it's gone, I've been actually very pleased with how it's worked out. There have been hiccups on the way. The LCFM people have been very good in terms of support and answering questions and so on. The need to constrain the data which is being synced, I wanted to minimize the data transfer between the server and the phones. And so therefore I didn't want, for instance, all of my 400 chaplains data going down onto everybody's phone.
Right.
Just only wanted the data from the one chaplain, and so on. So that constraining tables was an important thing to get working, and it works fine. And as I said, the LCFM people were really good in terms of working things through with me and so on. The other issue I ran into was my WebDirect app used the FileMaker Security settings to limit the record access and so on. So I was depending on it limiting record access. And so if I did a find, would only find certain things dependent on the security settings. The LCFM app on the phones runs with full access, and so therefore, those limitations and on those constraints, you can't depend on. So I needed to, all right, this is a full access thing, so in my finds, I have to do my own limitations and those sorts of things. Which that was not just an easy transfer of the WebDirect app across, but that's not a major issue.
So is it all your compiling has been to Android? Is that correct?
No, it's been to both iOS, Android, and Android. I've distributed now to both the Google Play Store and the App Store. And in my progress, I've had a team of about 60 of the volunteers put their hand up to be testers. And so therefore, I've had, I think, about 50 iOS and 30 Android testers testing the app, been through a number of iterations and so on. But that's worked out well. And now I've distributed it to the App Store, and the majority of them have downloaded the app from the app and the Play Store. So most of them have got the now published version.
Yeah, cool. And I know we talked a little bit about the sync in terms of like the multiple files, but how are you actually handling the sync like from the chaplain side? Is it automatic? Is it they're pushing something? Because I assume disaster area, you could have connection sometimes not. So just think of like people watching this with the FileMaker background, thinking of that kind of sync and how it's, different or better or what have you there.
Look, it's different. It's different as in you have to consider whether your data is up to date or not. Whereas using WebDirect or Go, you don't have to worry about it. LCFM has the opportunity to automatically sync. So whenever you do a commit, it would choose to sync. It can sync on a regular time basis, or you can say, no, I'll do it myself, and that's what I've chosen to do. So I choose to sync. If they're pushing a button on the phone, it says, all right, I want to do this function. I sync to make sure the information is correct. Then I take them to the function. When they've done that function, I sync again to send data back. And if there's a communication error that the sync doesn't work, the communication which I send back to the server is actually informed in the form of an entry in a work list table. So the chaplain has said this, here's the data, this is put in a work list table, and I sync that work list table back to the main app, to the server, wherein the main system then handles the work list. So if that work list, if I do a sync and send the work list off, 10 seconds later, I check to see whether there's anything in the work list. That is just the way that I'm saying, all right, it's probably not been sent or not been seen. So I will resync. I'll try to resync once a minute after that until the work list is empty. That's to allow the chaplain to come into range of communication, and it will, when a resync tries again, it'll get through. So LCFM's automatic system would do that anyway, but that's sought to limit both the traffic and also the battery life of the devices. I know I had one or two of my chaplains saying, "Oh, look, when I'm not using the app, I'm going to swipe it off the screen, and it's going to be therefore not active on my phone." And that's fine; I can do that. But it did highlight for me that there were people who were concerned about apps sitting on their phone active and apps drawing power and so on, and maybe data and so on that people are a bit concerned about.
Sure.
So I've chosen to limit the communication.
Cool. And then what's the kind of process if you need to make a change to the app and get that to them? Is that as simple as change it in FileMaker, recompile, and it pushes up as a new version?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. So it does mean that if I want to make a change to the data file because of the main system, I'd probably need to reissue a new build of the app to the App Store and to the Play Store. Yeah, but as I understand it, and I haven't actually done this yet, if I update to the App Store or the Google Play, then I pretty much understand that the phones will get a notification there's an update available for this app, and it will you'd update it like you update any other app on your phone.
Any input or advice on the submission process to Google Play versus App Store? I know I've done a little, like when with the FileMaker app SDK, like that's some submission to the App Store, and you could be waiting, it could get rejected. Like, is that kind of the similar case? And is there like, oh, Google's easier? Or, I don't know. Any comment on that?
Google is easier. I'll tell you that. Google is easier. The App Store, well, both of them require you to make images for you to appear on the App Store, to appear in various places, and they're very particular about pixel by pixel size of these images and so on. So both of them require that. The App Store is more finicky about that, it needs a significant number of different sizes and so on. I found a tool, it's called Icon Maker or something like that, which actually you can put in one version and it will generate all of the others for you, which is really nice.
Yeah.
The Google Play, you can, in terms of updating things, is really quite easy and so on. The App Store, once you've got it approved, then it's okay. To get mine through the hoops, I was required actually to provide a video of it running on an iOS device, which that was fine to do. The App Store, the Google Play didn't worry about that at all. It's possible because the app is such that, okay, if you put it on your phone, the first thing it does is ask for an email address, which is known to the system, and you can't go any further to have a look at it. So it's possible that that's why, but I got the impression that this may well be a requirement anyway of submission to the App Store to actually show it running on an iOS device. In terms of tripping across any, oh no, you've used some illegal code here or this or that or whatever, I didn't find any of that on either platform, which was encouraging. That's not me. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. I'm a FileMaker, that's fine, but Miles, I tried doing some SDK stuff as well, iOS SDK, I did a bit with it, but I never submitted to the App Store with that. Yeah. No, look, I guess one of the reasons that I put my hand up to talk to you about it was, yes, I get your live stream emails and so on, and I pick and choose what I look at, and I've benefited from those. I'll also know that I've benefited from the FileMaker community to be able to just put stuff out there. We'll look at the previous questions, but even for the whole system, I've done API work with Google Maps and Google Sheets, API work with an SMS provider. The FileMaker community has been really good and helpful. The Google community has been helpful. LCFM has been helpful. I just think there's a good place for us to share our experiences and what we've done. So why am I talking to you guys? Well, because I've got some experience and I'd like to be available to help others, because I've known that help myself.
Thank you so much, Ian. Seriously, I know I think you watched some of our live streams. If you tuned in today, thank you again for your time and your feedback. It's really awesome. We've got one more interview to go, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into that because we've got a lot to cover today.
Just so you know, hold it up. That's the book that our app's based on. So it's a very heavy, obviously, content-based system. And I've been working with FileMaker since version 2. So quite a while now. Yep, I think that's probably before some people were watching this, maybe been around. And my clients, we started initially wanting to just make a simple app. And initially what we did is we started off with FileMaker Go. So we obviously built something in FileMaker Go, got all that working nicely, and had that up and running, and then moved across to Swift, used Swift to convert it to an Apple app. And that was about 3.5 years ago. And at that stage, obviously, we needed to figure out that we needed to go Android as well, because the market was just so much bigger for Android. But the gentleman that wrote this book, has a new edition coming out. He's the same age as myself. We didn't want to learn a new program. And that was the issue. Trying to figure out how to do Android apps on top of everything else was just too complex. So we went out to the market to get some pricing. And the pricing came back that was just unattainable for what we were looking for. And at that stage, we'd started looking at what was available, obviously doing the normal things with Google searches and all the rest of it. And we managed to find a couple of products, very early stages of their development. One was from the UK, and had a lot of promise, but then got sold to a Hong Kong company that just let it die. And at that stage, I came across just LiveCode, and I had a look at LiveCode and figured that was a relatively good product to use, and started some work. But then I got distracted with other developments, and then I think it was Heather. We're on a email list, and that email list advised us that they were looking at doing something with FileMaker, and immediately we registered. And so from very early days, we started working with it, and from the outset, they have just been absolutely brilliant to work with. Every time we've had a problem, a situation, they've just resolved it for us. So, down to the fact that initially we have, I don't know, something like 3,000 or 4,000 hyperlinks within the app itself to different drugs. So there's one particular drug that has 20 hyperlinks to different related drugs that had to be all linked together, right? And trying to get all this to work, but we needed the hyperlinks to remain in bold and in colors, etc. And where it was all pretty simple in FileMaker and in Swift to hold all the typefaces, we discovered that we couldn't hold the typefaces initially in LiveCode. So we started working with them, and eventually found out that Droid, which is obviously an Android font, would hold everything that we required. So there was a lot of working and solving problems as we went through. And there were dozens of phone conversations and emails back and forward, helping us resolve the problems that we were having as we were trying to develop. To the point now that we've got a new version just about to come out, and we'll make an Apple and an Android version of that, and it'll probably take me 20 minutes to make both. So going from the FileMaker file and dumping it in in 20 minutes, I'll have a brand new Android and brand new Apple version, roughly 20 minutes, could be a little longer. And it's just so brilliant. It's just push a couple of buttons and away it goes and creates it. Yeah, it's, as I said, we've been working with them now for maybe 2 years, a bit over 2 years. So it's taken a while to get to the point, but we're now hosted on, their App Store and the Android store with the new products. And each time it takes me usually longer to get the Android app onto their site, onto Google Play, than it does to actually make the darn thing nowadays. So it's quite brilliant. It's absolutely a fantastic product. And I've started using it with a couple of other clients as well now. So we're in development at the moment with a couple of other products. So yeah, just absolutely love it. What more can I say? Great people to deal with.
So do you still use like FileMaker Go, or once you kind of came across LiveCode, did you kind of pivot that and compile that way?
Okay, so we still have a Go version available, and we also have WebDirect version available. So we have some clients that want to use it based on a web-based system. So we've actually developed it into WebDirect so that they can log in and it fully functional in the same way that it functions on the apps, and they can access that via any browser, of course. But that's limited to, we have some government bodies looking at using it that way. We're talking to police associations and things like that, because the guide is actually for people that are out in the marketplace, nurses, doctors, those sorts of people, to be able to look up any drug and find out what any interactions with that drug are anywhere in the world. So it's based on American drugs, the list of American drugs, but obviously written here out of Australia at the moment. But working in conjunction with some people in the United States with all the terms and the right stuff, information that we have there. So yeah, Go is still there. All development is still done. Primary development and changes are all done in FileMaker, all hosted off a server through FMP hosting out of their Sydney hosting facility here. So myself and the client and a couple of others can actually get in there and look at it and actually make changes if we need to make changes to drug upgrades or changes. And then we just push it back out of that server through LCFM, and we have our finished products.
Very cool. So is the for your database, are the users that are using it, it's mostly searches and clicking links, or are they doing some type of data entry as well?
There's no data entry. So this is entirely offline product. Okay, we have another product which is which is order processing between China and Australia. So that is using two-way linking.
Right.
As I said, that's in development, but this is an offline product entirely. So once it's on you download it, you can interact with it, but you cannot get the data out of it. I mean, it's obviously completely locked because it's copyrighted information. So we're trying to protect that information as best we can. And the basic top 300 drugs don't change all that often. So they're the most common drugs out there. They cover about 3,500 roughly different names for those drugs because they're sold under different brands and all the rest of it. So like paracetamol has dozens and dozens of brands. So that doesn't change a great deal. So once someone's got it, they can it'll be up to date for quite some time. And that's what we've found over this period, that if we were trying to write the code ourselves to cope with any changes that Google may put in place or Safari or Explorer, that would take us forever. Whereas LiveCode's doing all that, a new version comes out, and we just adapt to it. We just take it and put a new version up on both the stores, so we can take that into consideration. So that's where we think the advantage is, that we're not having to do that hard coding stuff. Obviously, we're just doing that the back end side and the fun FileMaker side, and the rest of it is easy. I mean, in Australia, FileMaker isn't as well known as it is in the United States, obviously. And trying to get clients sometimes is a hassle. But once you show them the product and people can see how easy it can interface, it's usually a pretty easy sell-in from that point. But it's getting that first appointment and getting the IT departments usually to accept the fact that it's not that little product that used to be around years ago. and it has so much power nowadays. You would all experience a similar situation, I'm sure.
It's a really glowing review, which is awesome, obviously. I'm glad that it's helped you guys so much.
Oh, it has. It's been a godsend. The amount of money it saved us over the period has been phenomenal. And as I said, as a group to work with, they've been terrific from our perspective. I mean, obviously our time zones are entirely different, but we have an overlap. So there was a period where, around about 11 o'clock at night, I could communicate and get answers virtually straight away. And if there was a problem that couldn't be solved straight away, by the time I woke up the next morning, I usually had the solution sitting here for me. Which was absolutely superb. Well, we found a few bugs along the way that they hadn't found, obviously, and so we were able to help them from that aspect and let them know. And the major one was that font issue, the fact that it wouldn't hold colors, it wouldn't hold boldness, and it would actually, in some instances, totally reverse it for no apparent reason. So originally, obviously, we had to take all this information out of a Word document and convert it from a Word document to a FileMaker database. So all the different fonts information that was stored underneath changed over that period. So there was some confusion in the fonts. And it was actually one of their guys that actually showed me a trick within FileMaker to be able to convert the font to one font right through the whole system. So, and once we did that, that solved all our problems. So, yeah. And there were problems that weren't evident when we were dealing with Swift and going through that way. It didn't show up. So we were using the same data sources, but none of those issues occurred. It was only when we were trying to get onto the Android platform, which is a bit of a different platform. And as we all know, there are so many versions of it. Trying to keep up with it is complex. So someone else is doing that for us. We're very happy for that. Everyone's used to going to the Google Store or the Play Store or to Apple and just running the product and downloading it. So that's where we needed to be as well.
Okay, awesome. So these are both fantastic interviews. Thank you again very much, Stefan, for your time in your interview and discussing how LiveCode has worked out for you. Kevin, I think I'm inclined to turn it over to you now.
Oh, very good. Absolutely wonderful to hear those customer interviews. I'm just hearing those myself for the first time this evening. And of course, that's why we go to all this trouble and do all of this. And it's what makes it all worth it at the end of the day for us. So yeah, really pleased to get that feedback. So I'm going to talk a bit now about our roadmap. Before I do, just the conversation about fonts on Android reminded me of an unanswered question from yesterday, which was what happens if a font on Android is not installed and on the device. And the answer is at the moment that we just map to the closest font that we can. However, as somebody on our tech team pointed out, just based on a bit of customer feedback we've been having, Android does have fewer fonts installed by default than iOS. In fact, iOS does quite well because it has a lot of the Mac ones on it. So Mac apps tend to work quite well, of course, on iOS. So we will be adding the ability to embed a font into a solution, and that will be coming along quite soon. Right, let me share my screen here and go into presentation. So I have a little bit of a presentation around our roadmap, and I have a preview of some new technology that is coming shortly. Okay. The first thing I want to talk about today is the addition of new platforms that are coming. We've been beavering away getting ready to have both Windows deployment and web deployment. We have talked a bit about Windows deployment throughout this series. I mentioned it on a number of occasions, but we haven't really talked very much about web deployment. And web deployment in LiveCode for FM is really there to provide some of the main benefits that we provide as a platform. And one of the benefits that people associate very strongly with us, of course, is that ability to build native apps that deploy on Android. But the other major benefit is the reduced load that we have on the server. And as we heard in that first interview with Ian earlier, it's possible to really exercise quite fine-grained control over different aspects of the syncing process so that you don't actually overload the server. And WebDirect has a real limitation in the number of people that can connect at once. So I do have a demo today of our prototype of our web deployment. Now, we were considering demonstrating the app that we've been building together. We decided against that in the end because we don't yet have support for accessing the camera in our current web prototype. However, that support is right around the corner. So we have built the FileMaker sample events app in the prototype. And here it is running. So we are now in Safari. So this app is not running inside FileMaker. It's not running in LiveCode for FM. It's actually running in Safari. And what you're seeing is a series of screens which are all being rendered inside your browser in JavaScript. And the big difference between this and WebDirect is that in WebDirect, your rendering is going on server side. Essentially, the server is calculating what information to send to the client, and it has quite a fat pipe where it has to continuously send that information. It's a very, very heavy process on the server. Whereas this solution, everything is running 100% client side, and it will simply go back and connect to the server when it needs to do a sync using exactly the same set of syncing features that we have across our other platforms. So that same fine-grained control you get over table constraints, or choosing whether to sync automatically or choosing to sync at certain moments. If you implement that, for example, using LiveCode for FM for Android, then when it comes to deploying to the web, you'll find that it works in exactly the same way. You don't have to do any extra work. This demo is really coming along quite nicely. It is becoming reasonably usable, I would say. So we can add a contributor here. Frame. And put in an email address. Start to create a record here. I can go into tasks. So this is just one of the FileMaker sample apps. Assign this to myself. I just created myself there. I can create a new task. Take a day off. Definitely need to do that sometime soon. I think that's coming up. I can set agenda items. So again, that's all working as you would expect. I can add to the guest list, and that pops up. I also have the ability to pop up the little calendar widget, and I can go back and see a list of my events. I've obviously just created one new event here. So that's the event that I just created there. Just name that. And that gives me my application running in a browser. So this is obviously still at the prototype stage. We have been working at it throughout the course of the last few months over the summer, and we are getting pretty close to the point where we're going to be including it in one of the preview builds for you to be able to start playing around and getting some of your own content out into the web. So it resizes quite happily as well. It's probably worth showing. Should resize just as you resize the browser. Yeah, I mean, the only thing that's really remaining that's critical before we roll this out is just to get all of those data calls working correctly. This app's currently just running locally. But that obviously in itself is just an interesting testament to the fact that it's something that WebDirect obviously can't do. I could actually turn my Wi-Fi off. Obviously, I won't because I'm live streaming to you, and it would cut me off. But if I turn my Wi-Fi off, this app would actually continue to function, and your sync calls would obviously activate when the connection was re-established. So a sneak preview of something that we're really excited about, really proud of, that's coming together very rapidly, web deployment through exactly the same technology and with the same kind of compatibility. And we will relentlessly implement everything that you can squeeze into a browser these days. So most browsers have got hooks to let you do things like access the camera, access printing, these kind of things. We've a lot of experience implementing a very native-like experience across different platforms and technologies, and it's just important for us that pretty much every feature that you can get a browser to do, we will be implementing. So we have a very, very fully feature-rich implementation. So there you go, a nice sneak peek of something that we're really excited about. Windows deployment, as I say, is coming reasonably soon as well. I don't have a demo of that today. However, it is in progress, and we're making good progress on that at the moment. I mentioned some of these at the beginning session, but just to run through them again in case you missed that session, and maybe some of them will make a bit more sense to you now that you've seen 9 days of content on using LiveCode for FM. So the features that we have remaining, the first one is the ability to store data, a larger data store on device. And one limitation that we have at the moment for LiveCode for FM is that everything is loaded into RAM. So you need to have enough RAM. And if you do have enough memory on your device, then there isn't a limit per se on the size of the solution. However, it's important that for certain types of solution, you're able to have larger data stores. So that is coming, and obviously we have a fairly complete implementation of the data store already to do all the things that we do, and I don't think it's going to be too far off before we have that up and running. Support for the navigation bar. This is the bar that you can put up to navigate between records that comes up. It's an option in FileMaker Go. And it's interesting, actually, how many solutions seem to use this. We didn't think that it would necessarily be that popular, but it's been a piece of feedback that we've had repeatedly. And so it's something that we will be adding support for. There are still some forms of SQL that we do not support. We do support a number of the main forms, and you can see a list of those in the document that I shared earlier in the series. It has a list of all the features that we've got implemented. Spell checking, just a must-have. A few more Japanese language specific features that I believe that Japanese language solutions do now, for the most part, compile. And then any last items in that 12%, I think this actually covers a few more percent of the feature set. But we'll do anything else that's really needed. Probably mostly driven at this point by what you as customers need from us. We're starting to get to the point where there are obscure features and things that aren't getting used very much. And to be honest, people are coming back to us a bit more often about either one of these items or maybe a bug or a performance improvement more often now than they're coming back on a feature set. So it is coming, but I think we'll be focusing on some of these larger items and just on continuing to boost performance. Then in terms of improvements to the tool and the sort of process itself, I mentioned before, and it's worth saying this again. I know Stephen was talking in the interview that he gave just now about getting an app build out in 20 minutes for the new app stores. And we are delighted about that because it did used to take a lot longer than that to build an app. However, we do appreciate there's a subset of you that have relatively large apps that need to go through that process multiple times and might want to test several times in a day. So just that ability to only build in the changes, detect the changes and build the changes is something that is coming up. Easier notarization is actually sparked by me watching the process because I actually hadn't seen how you go through the notarization process before. And watching that process yesterday and the previous day just really made me think that we need to do a better job of just making that process a bit easier. So that's something that we will build into the tool. And then further performance improvements and bug fixes. I mean, it is worth saying that LiveCode for FM is a compiler. And at the moment, at a sort of a technical level, it's a virtual compiler. So it compiles to a certain level of performance, and that level is generally pretty good. But the thing about compilers is that there are quite a lot of different ways to optimize them. And so our focus to date has been on getting the breadth of the feature set and the richness of the feature sets and the accuracy on the feature set, rather than necessarily optimizing the performance of the compiler. And we've been optimizing specific cases, and in some cases now we're actually faster than FileMaker, but there are still some cases where we're not quite as fast. So this is a project that's been ongoing, and there's actually quite a large project for us at the moment, which will take us from that kind of virtual compiled level and take the compilers that we start to compile down to something a bit closer to machine code, which will give a big leap in performance. And one of the things that we've not said about LiveCode for FM, previously has been, that we're trying to outperform FileMaker. We've always been trying to, replicate FileMaker and expand the reach on platforms and reduce the data requirements and give you sort of native features on Android and so forth. But actually, I think we will be in a position, I think, in the coming months where we start to beat FileMaker in quite a number of areas, just in terms of calculation performance and performance for solutions. And so that's just another way that we can continue to be part of our goal of making FileMaker even better. So watch this space for that. Some really exciting things happening in the lab around that at the moment. And obviously we continue to fix bugs as we go, and we're always happy and pleased to get your feedback and to fix those. So that, I think, summarizes the gist of the roadmap as we understand it now. Of course, it's always something that changes over time as we get more people using the platform and get more feedback, and always very keen to have your input into it. So I'll ask all of you a question. If you're watching on the live stream, or if you're watching this in a recording, then feel free to email in. But I guess my question for you is, what's the one thing that you wish that we don't do, that you wish that we could do? So feel free to put that into the live stream just now if you're watching, or if you're watching the recording, feel free just to drop us a line. We're always looking for suggestions to improve. We really pride ourselves on looking after our customers and on being innovative and on breaking through the limits, so that you can do things that you just couldn't do before. The other thing I'll say is that we have a page for you. If you're not already on our mailing list to be kept up to date for LiveCode for FM, then please do sign up. It's just FileMaker.livecode.com. And if you go to this URL /RCC, you should get to a page which looks a little bit like this to stay in the loop. You can sign up to get email from us. And as a thank you for signing up, we will be sending you a surprise offer. And those surprise offers will start to go out from tomorrow, just as we reach the end of the course. I think that brings me to the end of my prepared segment. So let me turn off the screen sharing, and I'll see if there are any questions.
We've got a couple. Real quick, Miles is gonna back me up here on this one. That was really cool. I can't swear. Swearing is bad. That was really cool. That was really, 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 really cool. So I think Miles will agree with me on that one. Like, I'm not a developer quite enough. I've worked enough with FileMaker to know some of its limitations, and that's fantastic. Well,
thank you. It's great to hear. Really great to hear.
Yeah, the first thing that we saw in Discord is I want this. So
that's great.
I am going to ask, you already answered this question, but I think that'll be the one that people are going to ask constantly. Will the web app work offline? I believe your answer was yes, and it'll sync up after we reconnect.
Yes, it's the progressive web app. It works offline, definitely. That's one of the main reasons for making it one of the biggest advantages that we have over WebDirect. Yeah.
So, okay, yes, that's very cool. And I'm going to move on to the other questions. When deploying the web thing, will the server component be a binary running on a specific port? Thinking about dependencies, platform/Linux.
Okay, so the server, we're just connecting using the data API. I'm not sure what port that uses, but it just connects back to a FileMaker server quite happily. I think it might even does it use the web? I'm not actually sure the answer to that. I think it just uses a standard port, but I don't actually know the answer to that. However, if you tune in tomorrow, I shall bring the answer.
So question from Scott Kane. So LCFM translate compiles the FMP file into JavaScript? ?
Essentially, yes. I mean, that's an oversimplification. I think some of my engineers would probably, raise an eyebrow or two at that, but because there's quite a number of steps that it has to go through in order for that to happen. But I suppose in summary, that is what it does. Yes, that's correct.
Have you run into any issues with file size, Mac runtime, question mark?
No, no real issues. Nobody's come back with file size being an issue. We do recommend that for mobile applications, you're fairly careful with the amount of data you put on the device, but that's just good design for any mobile app. It's not something that's specific to LiveCode for FM. If you have a huge data source, then you want to set up constraints on the tables that you're syncing, and you want to have most of that data on the server, and then just pull down, the specific amount of data that you need to use the app, or maybe enough to use offline. In terms of the minimum file size, it's not enormous. I think we established that the overhead was somewhere between 15 and 30 megabytes was kind of like the minimum size, and then whatever you have in your solution just goes on top of that, starting from a few kilobytes all the way up, depending on how much data you have. That's a very approximate guide, but none of those sizes are really enough to cause any problems in today's world. I wouldn't have said, but that's definitely not an area that we're getting feedback on.
Okay, and then we have another question. Is there an ETA for web deployment? That was inevitable. Sorry.
I have learned in many years of doing this not to give out ETAs and live streams. It's just not sensible. All I can say is we have been very actively working on it over the course of the summer. It's coming along every day. It's something, I see new stuff going into GitHub and getting pulled, and issues getting resolved, and it kind of moving forward. I don't like my feeling now is we're not far off having something to show, but I don't want to pin it down any further than that. Fortunately, I think my engineers tomorrow would actually I'd get into a lot of trouble.
No need to piss off your engineers. So, so we do actually have some suggestions. Having tried the tool, I can't make it smaller / resize it. It would be nice to have dark mode. And I also think notarization in the tool would be nice.
So resize the tool. Yeah, we've had that feedback, but I will pass that along. Dark mode is coming. I saw a pull request for that just a few days ago. So that's coming. I'm sorry, what was the third one there?
The third one was notarization in the tool would be nice.
Oh, yes. Okay, good. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yes. So that's cool. Also dark mode, so you can work on LiveCode late at night and not burn your eyes. It's always nice.
Absolutely.
That's when engineers get most of their work. Well, it's when I get most of my work done. Also, I think this was asked before, but just to check, Claris are okay with this. Don't want to pay for the license and have it get shut down. Maybe I'm paranoid. Just want to check.
I mean, we've been talking to Claris all the way through this process. They did, a few months ago announce us as their, official partner for Android. I'm not quite sure what that means, but they did say that. Various people from Claris show up to our webinars and all the rest of it. I mean, we're still using a FileMaker server, so they're still getting, revenue, and we kind of designed it so that it would be a win-win for everybody. So, there's no cause for concern there.
Okay. Good to know. So this is a very shiny new toy. I mean, I call it a new toy, but really it's quite revolutionary. Anything you want to add, Miles? Because I don't see any other questions.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, go to that link Kevin shared. It sounds like if you want to stay in the loop, and when things come, you'll be the first to know. So I'm gonna sign up.
Brilliant.
Okay, any other questions or suggestions, people? Oh, there is one I forgot from David Angel. This is kind of a derail a little bit. So LiveCode uses the DAPI part of FM server, right? What is the price differences compared to the traditional way with FileMaker?
So we kind of covered this already in the series, but just to sort of recap on that, you need to have enough users with FileMaker in order to connect, and it's up to you to kind of choose whether the named user licensing is the right way, or if you're better to look at concurrent licensing. And just bear in mind that with concurrent licensing, unlike FileMaker, where your connection is always on the whole time, our connections are very short, usually a second or two, so you can get quite a lot of concurrent use. You're going to have to there's 3,600 seconds in an hour. So, if you have concurrent back, you can kind of work out what the chances are of getting more than a certain number connecting at a given time is, given that the connections are just very, very short. It's up to you. We give that kind of general advice, but ultimately, your Claris licensing is with Claris and your LCFM licensing is with us. So we can't sort of advise much further on the Claris licensing than that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And I have been informed by one of our Discord people that you're very nice. So this is unshocking, but in case you would like to know.
Very kind. Thank you.
I am going to give like another minute or two so people can like toss in like your last question, because I see someone typing on Discord. But any other last comments or suggestions? And if you decide to come up with a suggestion like, oh, I would actually like this in LiveCode, please email support@livecode.com. Said it right this time.
Please do. Yep, you said it right. Support@livecode.com. Always happy to get your suggestions. We really are.
Oh, okay. We do have one last question. Will there be any benefit to have a LiveCode subscription to extend the solution? ?
Okay, that's a great question. From the very start of this, we have talked about the ability to add LiveCode content into your LiveCode for FM content. And it is planned. We haven't actually added the hooks as yet. It's not a big job. So it's definitely coming. Yeah, and I could actually put that in the roadmap, come to think of it. So thank you for reminding me.
There you go. The answer, CJ, is yes. In that case, I think we're good. We'll be back tomorrow for a extended Q&A of wonder. Seriously, thank you so much, Kevin. This is really, really cool, really awesome, revolutionary for the FileMaker community, quite frankly. So thank you very much again. Any last parting comments, Miles, or you think we're good?
I'm good. We'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you all so much. And thanks everybody for coming in and watching this series.
All right. I will see you guys
just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected, the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Try to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.